My name is Riley Hart and I was the best strategist Stratton Technologies ever had. They just didn't realize it until their market share began bleeding one quarter at a time. This story isn't just about a stolen promotion. It's about how talent, when dismissed, doesn't disappear. It goes where it's valued. And sometimes brings down everything it helped build. They said the announcement would be at 10 a.m. sharp. By 10:04, the conference room smelled like burnt coffee and ego. Everyone was in their seats except the CEO and whoever he'd chosen to lead product strategy. My seat had been mysteriously placed beside the screen, right under the projected title, Next Chapter in Innovation Leadership. I didn't want to assume. I'd learned not to. But when your name has been at the top of every deliverable, when you've slept under your desk during 2 product crises, and when the executive board starts CCing you instead of your manager, it's hard not to believe the moment is yours. That was my first mistake. The second was staying in that room long enough to watch my future evaporate in the shape of a surname. Everyone, meet our new VP of Product Strategy, the CEO beamed, walking in with a grinning 20-something kid who looked like he'd gotten lost on the way to a frat party. Connor Stratton. The room clapped. I didn't. Let me guess, I muttered, spinning my black coffee in circles. He's got an MBA from somewhere overpriced and a last name that gets him into meetings I've had to earn. Yale actually, said Jamie from UI. And his Instagram is full of cigars and crypto quotes. I winced. That'll help when he's redesigning our flagship product with a vision board and a dog filter. We both laughed, but my knuckles were white on the cup. It wasn't jealousy. It was insult. I had sacrificed 3 years of my life for this company. Not just clocking in, I mean real sacrifice. Weekends. Birthdays. My relationship. Gone. I'd led the last 3 rollouts. When our cloud service crashed on Christmas Eve, I was the one Skyping engineers across 4 time zones to keep hospitals running. I had earned this. But apparently, none of that stood up against being Connor, the CEO's sister's son Stratton. The meeting ended. Connor shook hands like a politician on his first campaign. People smiled politely. I nodded once and walked out. No scene. No protest. Let them think I was digesting it. As I was. And what I tasted was blood. I didn't go back to my desk. I went to the server room. Pulled every document I authored from the last 18 months, backups, drafts, even shelved strategies no one had touched. Then I went home. And slept. For the first time in weeks, my dreams were clear. 2 days later I got a message. Blocked number. Just a voice. We saw what they did. If you're open to talking, we're listening. This isn't a job offer, Riley, it's an opening move. The company name they left at the end? Virion Technologies. Stratton's biggest rival. Twice as fast. Twice as hungry. And suddenly I was very interested in feeding the wolves. I hadn't just worked at Stratton. I had built its framework. Most people thought our internal AI forecasting tools were created by some Harvard genius with a title. They weren't. They were me, a whiteboard, and 3 Red Bulls at 2 a.m. Stratton had patented the shell. But the soul? The real algorithmic logic? That lived in my head. And in a private Git repo only I knew existed. So when Virion flew me out first class to a glass tower in Seattle, I didn't come as a desperate reject. I came as the weapon. People think betrayal is loud. Mine was quiet. No resignation letter. No LinkedIn post. Just silence and then the slow, calculated hum of progress. Somewhere else. The CEO thought he was buying loyalty with a last name. What he bought was a collapse. One I was about to engineer. Brick by brick. OCR scan iOS and Android mobile app. Continue listening on the go. When I stepped into the Virion lobby, everything felt cleaner. Not just the polished floors or the glass railings or the silent efficiency of their staff. It was the energy. Stratton always felt like a forced smile. A family-run circus in business casual. Virion, it felt like precision. Like intention. Like I'd finally stepped into a place where people didn't pretend to know what they were doing, they just did it. Riley Hart, a voice said. I turned. A woman in a navy blazer stood holding a tablet, her tone clipped and respectful. I'm Celine. Head of Strategy Ops. Follow me. No rehearsed tour. No HR video. Just movement. And I liked that. We didn't sit at a desk. We stood in a war room. 6 screens tracked live competitor metrics, patent filings, social sentiment analysis. One showed a blinking red warning. Stratton Project Hermes, go-to-market leak suspected. Celine tapped it. We've been watching Stratton's rollout plans. But they're guessing. We want to leap. That's where you come in. She didn't ask about my resume. Didn't need to. What she wanted was what Stratton hadn't valued. My mind. We're offering you Director of Special Programs. Confidential. Build what you've always wanted to build. We fund it. You lead it. One condition: no mercy. I almost laughed. Mercy, I said, is off the table. My office wasn't really an office. It was a secure innovation cell nicknamed the Forge. Keycard-only access. Whiteboards, sandbox servers, and a dev team of 5 hand-picked engineers who didn't flinch at insane timelines. I named our first initiative Project Echo. It was designed to mimic and disrupt Stratton's core predictive engine, only better. Not a copy. An evolution. By the end of week 2, we were running simulations that beat Stratton's models by 17%. By week 4 we had a demo that blew Celine's mind. This isn't a counter, she whispered. This is an extinction protocol. I smiled. Exactly. Stratton didn't feel it at first. But the market did. We released a beta tool under a shell startup, just a whisper of a release on Product Hunt and Reddit. But it was enough. Developers began abandoning Stratton's subscription model. Analysts took note. Connor, the nephew, went on a podcast to do damage control. I listened while debugging code. He mispronounced heuristics. Twice. 10 days later, my old manager Lauren emailed me. Subject: Hey. Coffee. Hey Riley, I heard you've landed somewhere great. Just wanted to say congrats and maybe grab coffee sometime if you're free. No pressure. Just miss having you around. Lauren miss me? No. When I was sleeping under my desk she was quiet. When they handed my job to the golden child she smiled and clapped. Now she missed me. I didn't reply. 2 months in, Stratton's numbers dipped. Then tanked. Their flagship product, once considered untouchable, started returning negative net growth for the first time in 5 years. Investor calls were getting shorter. Their CEO retired. I knew what came next. They'd start looking inward. Then backward. And they'd land inevitably on me. Sure enough it came. This time it wasn't blocked. It was the CEO. Not Connor. Him. Riley, we didn't part on the best terms, he began. I said nothing. But I wanted to reach out personally. Things at Stratton are evolving. There may be opportunities again. He meant to say mistakes were made but couldn't. He meant we need you. I waited. Then asked, is Connor still VP? Pause. Yes. I hung up. At Virion I began designing our most aggressive play yet. I called it GhostNet. A predictive commerce engine so intuitive, it could anticipate B2B demand fluctuations days before they trended. Not just disruption. Domination. And I embedded a signature line of code in the footer. Encrypted, buried deep. But any Stratton engineer who ever read my logs would know it. Echo, I didn't just want to beat them. I wanted them to know why they were losing. I wanted every board meeting to be haunted by the decision they clapped for. I didn't storm out. I didn't scream. I left quietly. But I was never gone. I was just building something bigger. Something colder. Something with teeth. GhostNet didn't just launch. It arrived. 1 minute the market was stable. The next, distributors were getting tailored inventory forecasts before their own analysts could process trends. Manufacturers cut costs by 23% within weeks. Entire supply chains began to orbit our dashboards like we were the gravitational center of commerce. We didn't just enter the arena. We rewrote the rules of the game. And Stratton? Stratton didn't even know who they were playing against until it was far too late. Virion kept its name off GhostNet at first. Strategic stealth mode. The platform went live under a shell firm, Eidolon Systems, and was packaged as a mysterious AI disruptor with zero marketing-only results. Tech reporters lost their minds. Think pieces exploded across the web. Whoever built GhostNet knows Stratton's playbook intimately. TechEdge magazine, some are whispering, is this an inside job? Bloomberg Wire, it wasn't just whispers. It was war. At Stratton the fallout started with blame. Connor was still doing press. Still fumbling his way through interviews and speaking in cliches. But behind closed doors, paranoia. Senior leads began resigning to spend more time with family. Investors were circling like vultures over a carcass. And then my favorite part came: the audit. An internal security sweep designed to catch leaks. I knew they'd find nothing. I hadn't taken anything tangible when I left. Just my intellect. And a plan. I got the email at 2:16 a.m. Subject: Seriously? I know this is you. You think you're clever? You're destroying everything we built. You're sick. Connor, it was the first direct message I'd ever gotten from him. I read it 3 times. Then I archived it. Virion's board asked if I wanted a bonus. I told them to fund another Forge cell instead. We launched Project Obsidian, an extension of GhostNet, now integrating ESG analytics, global market shocks and consumer sentiment. A living, breathing brain of business. Meanwhile, I had a new idea. We'd make GhostNet open access for 48 hours, just long enough to flood the industry and cripple Stratton's exclusivity model. The CEO at Virion looked at me like I was unhinged. You want to give away the tech? Just a taste, I said. Long enough for clients to understand they've been living in the past. The launch video was simple. No actors. No voiceover. No branding. Just a blinking screen that said, GhostNet sees what others can't. Try it. 48 hours. No logins. No limits. The next morning, 8.7 million unique users accessed the platform. Stratton's traffic dropped 62%. Their client retention systems buckled under panicked cancellations. That night I got a call. It wasn't blocked. It wasn't anonymous. It was Lauren. Riley. It's bad. I said nothing. They're spiraling. Layoffs. Board fights. They think you embedded something, spyware, malware, I don't know. People are afraid of you. I laughed. Not because it was funny, but because that fear, that was respect finally arriving 10 months too late. I didn't plant anything, I said. You sure? She whispered. I paused. Only seeds. Then I hung up. That night I couldn't sleep. Not from guilt. From something worse. Emptiness. I'd built GhostNet to outsmart Stratton, to destroy what they valued more than people, legacy, names, hierarchy. And I'd done it. But I hadn't felt joy. Only silence. Like the roar I expected. Had passed me by. Like revenge had finished its work and walked away before I could thank it. Virion offered me a press tour. Wired. Davos. I turned them down. Visibility was never the goal. What mattered was impact. Stratton's board released a statement the next week. Connor Stratton had resigned to pursue other interests. By the time that press release hit the wires, I was already 3 layers deep in Project Obsidian's neural prediction loop. And yet, in the back of my mind, I knew. This wasn't over. Stratton wasn't dead. Not yet. But when they rose again, if they rose, I would be waiting. They thought I was gone. Forgotten. Dismissed. But ghosts don't leave. They linger. And the longer they're ignored, the louder they return. They offered me the entire division. AI Strategy Global. Virion's crown jewel. 12 countries. 42 teams. Full control of Project Obsidian and its expansion into military logistics and financial modeling. In short, they handed me a kingdom. And I hesitated. Because somewhere between the first sabotage and the final prototype, I'd stopped being a builder. And become something else entirely. Celine slid the offer letter across the table without a word. The document wasn't just lucrative, it was absolute. No committees. No co-leads. I'd report directly to the CEO. Every tool I needed, any team I wanted, any country I pointed to, they would fund it. You earned this, she said simply. She wasn't wrong. But I'd earned it by becoming sharp, silent, and merciless. And sometimes, I missed who I used to be. Before Stratton, before GhostNet, I was just Riley, the daughter of a middle school teacher and a mechanic. I used to sketch algorithms on diner napkins. Not for power. Not for leverage. Just for joy. Back then, creation felt like freedom. Now it felt like warfare. A tool sharpened not to build, but to dismantle. I looked in the mirror that night and barely recognized the woman staring back. Hair sharper. Voice colder. Eyes tired. She had won everything. And she had lost something else. 3 days after the offer, I received a LinkedIn message from a name I hadn't heard in years. Alyssa Mendez. My college roommate. The one who used to drag me to poetry readings and remind me to breathe. Her message was short. Saw the headlines. Proud of you. But are you okay? You don't look like you sleep anymore. I didn't answer. Because she was right. And it scared me. Then out of nowhere news broke. Stratton had been acquired. Not by Virion. By Echelon Corp, a ruthless multinational known for turning struggling companies into efficient but soulless machines. Connor disappeared entirely. No press. No exit speech. Just gone. But Echelon announced something else too. We're proud to relaunch Stratton under new leadership, with a renewed focus on innovation. And we'll be rolling out our new predictive engine, Polaris. Polaris. I froze. That was one of my names, a shelved code name from an early GhostNet prototype. Which meant they were using some twisted hybrid of what I'd left behind. How? Someone had stolen my discarded ideas. And turned them into a product I'd never consented to. I stormed into the forge. Pulled every repo, every branch, every scrap of Polaris-related code I'd ever created. And sure enough, buried in the framework of their early build, my logic, my sequences, my fingerprints. But it wasn't a leak from Virion. It was from Stratton. They'd taken one of my old whiteboard snapshots, posted in a team Slack long before I left and reverse engineered it. It wasn't illegal, but it was mine. And now it was their resurrection. I stood alone in the war room that night, lights dimmed, blueprints glowing across the glass walls. Virion had given me power. Stratton had taken my past. And both were demanding the same thing. All of me. Celine called me as I was reviewing access protocols. Have you made your decision? I stared at the offer letter still on my desk. And said, not yet. Because I had one final move to consider. One play so audacious, so precise that it could erase Stratton forever. But it came with a price. I called it Terminus. An aggressive release of GhostNet's successor, Obsidian Prime, that would render Stratton's new Polaris engine obsolete overnight. Think of it like lighting a match in a room full of gas. Beautiful, effective, dangerous. And if I launched it, there'd be no coming back. Not for them. Maybe not for me. Revenge had tasted sweet. But it was starting to taste like ash. I had become everything they feared. And now I had to ask, did I want to keep going? Or had I already won? The line between power and poison was razor thin. And I was about to decide which one I'd drink from. I launched Terminus at 6:01 a.m. on a Thursday. No press release. No countdown. Just a quiet, surgical update to GhostNet's backend that rendered every predictive tool Stratton had, Polaris included, obsolete by noon. While they scrambled to respond, our Obsidian Prime engine had already mapped their client patterns, projected their panic, and begun absorbing their customer base in real time. By the time Wall Street opened, Stratton's stock had dropped 31%. By noon, 47%. By market close, 62%. Stratton Technologies had not just lost the fight. It had been vaporized. And I should have felt unstoppable. But I didn't. Because someone knocked on my door that night. And it wasn't Virion. I opened the door to see Connor Stratton. No security. No driver. Just him standing there like someone who'd seen a ghost and knew it was his fault. He looked smaller. Not just thinner, deflated. No more smug grin. No more expensive haircut. He wore an old hoodie and eyes that hadn't slept. What do you want? I asked. I want you to stop. I laughed. You mean too late? He nodded slowly, then reached into his bag and pulled out a folder. He handed it to me. Inside, printouts, emails, Slack messages, and one photo. The photo. The one with my whiteboard Polaris draft, taken from my own Stratton office 3 years ago. Watermarked with internal access. He looked at me. I didn't leak it, but I let them use it. And I need to say it, I'm sorry. He sat across from me in my glass-walled kitchen like a man confessing to a priest. They told me you were dangerous, he said. They said you'd outgrow the company. That promoting you would break their control. I stared at him. So they picked you. I was never supposed to lead anything, he admitted. I was their placeholder. A shield to keep someone like you from getting too close to the top. He swallowed hard. And you proved them right. Just. Not the way they thought. Why now? I asked. You've already burned it down. He looked at me, voice quiet. Because you were the only real thing that place ever had. And I ruined it. For a split second the rage cracked. Behind it was something heavier. Grief. Not for Stratton. For the version of me that might have stayed. The one that never got erased. After he left, I walked through the forge alone. The AI models hummed. The screens flickered with market collapses and client migrations. Virion had won. But I couldn't stop staring at the empty chair in the corner. The one I'd reserved for, someday. For the intern, but I had never hired one. Because this war had made me a general, not a teacher. The next day Celine called. You torched them, she said. Congratulations. But I could hear it in her voice. Even she didn't know what came next. Neither did I. Ide destruya Stratton. But what would I build now? That was the part no one talked about. Winning is easy. Rebuilding, that's the hard part. 3 days after the fallout, I received an invitation. Mit Future Tech Summit. Keynote speaker. Subject, power, ethics, and the algorithm. The irony wasn't lost on me. But I said yes. Not for the stage. For the message. Because for the first time in years, I had something to say that wasn't built on anger. It was built on clarity. I stood backstage the night before reviewing my notes. And this is what I had written. They didn't just deny me a promotion. They denied what I represented. Vision over vanity. Skill over surname. But here's what they didn't understand. When you ignore the builders go elsewhere. And sometimes, they take the future with them. Terminus wasn't just an ending. It was a reckoning. For every underestimated voice. For every silenced name. For every door slammed shut in the face of someone who didn't look the part but was the part. I had burned the old world. And now, it was time to build something better. The auditorium at the MIT Future Tech Summit was full before I even stepped on stage. Rows of industry leaders, scientists, students, skeptics, and if rumors were true, representatives from Echelon Corporation, the new owners of the company I'd buried. Funny. 3 years ago I was scribbling ideas on the back of takeout menus, invisible in a room where I'd done all the work. Now they wanted to hear me speak. I adjusted the mic. And for the first time in this whole war, I told the truth. I was never the chosen one, I began. I wasn't born with the right connections. I didn't have a board member for a father or a shortcut in my pocket. I had one thing: results. And for a long time I thought that would be enough. It wasn't. When I built their system, they clapped for the executive who presented it. When I saved their launch, they toasted the man with the family last name. And when I stood up for the promotion I'd earned, they smiled. And gave it to someone who had never failed because he had never done anything. That decision cost them everything. But I'm not here to celebrate their collapse. I'm here because every system, every structure that rewards familiarity over merit, is doomed to fall. And I'm here to build what comes next. The applause came slowly. Not because they weren't listening. Because they were. No one interrupted. No one looked away. Even the Echelon reps sat frozen, some with their hands steepled, others with eyes narrowed in silent calculation. I let them digest it. Then I gave them the last piece. I don't want to be feared, I said. I want to be replaced. A murmur. I smiled. By people who were ignored like I was. Dismissed like I was. Underestimated just like you might be. I turned to the side screen and revealed what I'd been building in secret for months. The Hart Fellowship. A fully funded initiative inside Virion, designed to find young engineers and strategists from overlooked backgrounds and give them access to labs, mentors and capital with no corporate strings attached. Talent without politics. Innovation without legacy handcuffs. I looked out at the stunned crowd. Let the next Riley Hart in the room without making her burn it down first. Celine met me in the wings after the speech. You know what this means, she said. I do. You've just changed our structure forever. I know. She paused. Then grinned. Good. 3 weeks later I got a letter. Handwritten. No return address. But I knew the handwriting. Connor. Inside, I watched the speech. You didn't destroy me. You set me free. I'm doing something new. This time I'll earn it. Thank you. I folded it carefully and placed it in a drawer. Not because I forgave him, but because I was done needing to win. They say legacy is what you leave behind. They're wrong. Legacy is what you build that outlasts you. Not in buildings. Not in stock tickers. But in the people you reach, the doors you open, the voices you elevate when no one else will. I didn't need a corner office to do that. I needed a fire. No. I am the match and the architect. I was erased from their plan. So I made a better one. And this time, no one gets left behind.